your lay worship leader for today's service. I warmly welcome you all to First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church in Bridgewater. I've been a member here for officially a year, but I've been coming here for over 6. I currently serve on the parish committee as vice president. What I love about First Parish is the people. The people here are always so nice and so friendly, and you all make my heart very happy. This morning we are pleased, before we begin our worship, we have some announcements. So the first one, we still need warm hats, gloves, mittens, scarves, and hand warmers and energy bars. They're needed by the homeless in Boston. There is a donation box located in the vestibule between the sanctuary and the upper parish hall. And thank you so much for your donations. We also still need help with social hour. So there is a new sign-up sheet next to the coffee pot in the upper parish hall. Please sign up on the form to volunteer for coffee hour. Also, there is a special meeting that's going to be happening January 22nd at 12 p.m. after service. We did send out an email, so please see your email for details on the meeting. And then Sam has an announcement.
Hello, everyone. Today is the day when one of the auction items gets delivered. So this afternoon at 1 o'clock, we will have an hour and a half of sacred circle dancing. I'll be teaching along with my colleague, Bette Giddings. The auction was for $10 per person. So if you'd select to join us, it'll be a $10 contribution to First Parish. So that's 1 o'clock right next door in the upper parish hall. It also means that we might have to chase you out of coffee hour if you're very talkative and stay a long time. So, because we have to clear the table. Thank you.
First Parish Bridgewater is a welcoming congregation. We proudly fly the rainbow flag to symbolize our welcome to people of every description and all ages. Normally this is the first Sunday of the month, but this morning, children and their family members have been invited to participate in the family chapel, which takes place during worship in the upper parish hall. It's led by our creative and caring religious educators. Family chapel services explore Unitarian Universalist principles, rituals, and themes with activities designed to engage our youngest members and their families. We encourage all with young children in your lives to participate together. If you are new to First Parish, we hope you enjoy your experience this morning. We encourage you to sign the guest book at the table at the rear of the sanctuary, making sure to include your email address to receive our newsletter. If you're joining us online, you can request to join our mailing list at our website. We invite all who are here in person to join us after the service in the upper parish hall for a time of fellowship. Obviously, don't stay too long because Sam's going to be up there at 1. This service is being hosted via Zoom and recorded for Bridgewater Cable TV. The camera is turned off to protect your privacy during the sharing of joys and sorrows. In the event of an emergency or evacuation drill, please leave the building through the main sanctuary doors, or should you need a ramp, through the school street entrance, where a volunteer will be able to help you. Meet by the little free library in the parking lot next to the BSU Art Building. You're welcome here. Thank you for joining us. Your presence, whether in person or online, makes a difference. Now we'll have our prelude. join us in reciting our chalice lighting words. We light our chalice to mark this sacred hour as we gather in this beautiful historic sanctuary, both in body and in spirit. We connect to the many generations that have come here to explore the divine. Let us join our hearts and find the holy in our relationship to each other. It is time to share worship together. Please rise in body and spirit and join our voices for the affirmation of our covenant. Look at the screen for the words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is a gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. To bring the above statements to fruition, we pledge to each other, our fellow church members, church leadership, church staff, minister, and our youth to maintain personal integrity, nurture each other's spiritual growth, communicate honestly and directly, maintaining confidentiality and avoiding gossip, listen sensitively and patiently without judgment, keep an open mind on all issues, tolerate differences of opinion. Support each other in sorrows, serve as models of appropriate and respectful behavior, focus on the common goal of creating a vibrant religious community, remembering that such community requires our time, talent, and financial support. This is covenant as a guidepost in making decisions. Honoring these pledges will enable us to have an inclusive community of love, truth, justice, stewardship, and service within and beyond these walls.
It's really good to be back with you this morning. At last, it was my turn to experience COVID firsthand. I'm in the clear now, but it was actually a longer journey than I anticipated, and my voice is still a little bit ragged. So I invite you to bear with me this morning. Our opening words are a responsive reading. It's from our hymnal, number 439, and it's by one of our great religious thinkers of the last century, Sophia Lyon-Fahs. You may use the hymnal, but the words are also on the screen. I will begin and invite you to respond in unison with the underlined, italicized portions. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of being together, so close yet so apart.
Each in our own secret chamber.
Each listening, each trying to speak.
None fully understanding, none fully understood.
We gather in reverence before all intangible things that eyes see not, nor ears can detect.
That hands can never touch, that space cannot hold, and time cannot measure.
Amen. Let's rise in body or spirit and join together in singing our opening song, a song of gathering and reverence, Gather the Spirit, number 347 in the gray hymnal.
Now is the time in our service for sharing of joys and sorrows, those matters great and small that touch us, our families, and loved ones. Those of you attending online may share your joys and sorrows by typing them in the chat. And feel free to come up and share a joy or sorrow.
Let us take a moment together to turn inward, to breathe into the expansiveness of our hearts, to weave into the compassion of our hearts, the joys and sorrows that have been spoken here. For we know that joy and woe are woven fine. We make space in our hearts to celebrate the joys of birthdays and watching children grow into the fullness of adulthood. We lift up and weave into our hearts the joys of dance and jazz and worship, the joy of resistance and solidarity in the face of oppression, the joy of healing and recovery, and intricately connected to those joys, we make room for the sorrows and the concerns, the prayers of healing and health for Diane and David, prayers of remembrance and holding on for Diana. Into this fine fabric, we weave our own compassion, stitching together the joy, the goodness, the compassion of sharing this life together in spiritual community. Let us take a moment to hold that beautiful tapestry close to our hearts. And as you are ready, I invite you to return your attention to this gathered community, to this beautiful space, to our words, our music, and the time that we share together. I have a prayer for you this morning from a colleague, retired colleague, Richard Gilbert. It's a prayer in the form of a quarrel, an inner quarrel, a tension between competing impulses within the speaker. And that's the theme for this morning. How do we embrace the quarrel? How do we find our way through making room for the truth that comes from different, sometimes seemingly contradictory perspectives? It's called To Savor the World or Save It. And Gilbert begins with a quote from the writer E.B. White. It's hard to know when to respond to the seductiveness of the world and when to respond to its challenge. If the world were merely seductive, that would be easy. If it were merely challenging, that would be no problem. But I arise in the morning torn between the desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it hard to plan the day. And Richard Gilbert's prayer. I rise in the morning torn between the desire to save the world or to savor it, to serve life or to enjoy it, to savor the sweet taste of my own joy or to share the bitter cup of my neighbor, to celebrate life with exuberant step, or to struggle for the life of the heavy laden. What am I to do when the guilt at my bounty clouds the sky of my vision, when the glow which lights my every day illumines the hurting world around me? To savor the world or save it. God of justice, if such there be, take from me the burden of my question. Let me praise my plenitude without limit. Let me cast my eyes from all troubled folk. No, you will not let me be. You will not stop my ears to the cries of the hurt and the hungry. You will not close my eyes to the sight of the afflicted. What is that you say? To save, one must serve. To savor, one must save. The one will not stand without the other. Forgive me in my preoccupation with myself, in my concern for my own life. I had forgotten. Forgive me, God of justice. Forgive me and make me whole. Amen. We'll close this time of meditation and prayer with a musical prayer, a musical meditation. It may be new to some of you. We haven't done this, I'm told, in many years. It's number 89, Come My Way, My Truth, My Life. Now is the time in our service when we give of our treasure as an act of faith, a tangible expression of our values, faith that the values we affirm and strive to live by can and will make the world more just and free and healing for all members of the human family. This month, the plate collection will be shared with the local group COPE, C-O-P-E. They will be leading a Narcan training here at church after worship on January 29th. And these trainings are critical. They're for the general public, and they're an essential way to reduce the number of fatal opioid overdoses and save lives in our communities. Our offering will now be given and gratefully received. As a preface to our sermon, I'd like to share with you a message, a video message that was recorded a couple of decades ago of Ramon Panicar. He was one of the most renowned scholars of interreligious studies and dialogue, a proponent of interreligious exchange. And so as a lead into the sermon, I offer you that video now.
One of the metaphors I use is that we are all seeing the world from our particular point of view. We see the world through a window. And here I say two things. First, the more cleaner the window is, the less I see the window and the glass. And the more I am enthused and in love with what I see. So I don't see my window. I see through the window. And I need my fellow who tell me, look here, you are looking through a window. But then I have to tell him, sorry, you also look at the window. And then we compare notes. And in great part we see the same landscape, but perhaps we see it a different way also. And perhaps I say, no, I would like to see that, and it's all right. So we need each other. But here's another thing with the metaphor of the window. I see through my window, and I cannot say that I do not see what I see through my window. I don't see through the window of my neighbor. But if I love my neighbor, which I think is not bad, then I will have to hear the description of what my neighbor say, and then say, well, sorry, I don't see that, because I see the window. But I hear you telling me something else. Well, what do I discover? I discover two things. I discover that the other, my neighbor, doesn't see the same world as I see. But I discover that I don't see the whole world. Because unless he's a fool and I'm a fanatic, or I haven't heard him, I hear. And you remember that St. Paul said that faith comes from hearing. I hear the other telling me something about the world, about reality, about he or she sees through the window, that I don't. And then, I say, then the world is much nicer than I thought. I thought I was seeing the whole picture, and now you are telling me that the thing is little. Well, I don't like more or like better. It's an enrichment, it's a challenge. And here begins the interreligious dialogue. You say what you hear, you say what you believe, you say you experience, and narrate at the same time to hear the other telling other narratives, other beliefs, other experiences. And then we dialogue. I need you to tell me that I'm looking through a window. Nobody alone can find anything. We need each other. And today, in the present day political, economical, and world situation, no single man, no single system, no single religion can deal with the human condition and claim to be and to offer the solution of the problems of our planet. So either solidarity on all levels, or we go to catastrophe. Individualism or collective individualism. We Catholics, we fellows, we the Negroes, we the whites, we whoever, the scientists, the believers. It's gone. We need to become more and more aware that humanity is one and that nobody has the monopoly on these ultimate things or on truth.
What a wonderfully Unitarian Universalist choral anthem. Thank you so much, choir members and Denise, for that gift. Sometime during the extensive snowstorms that slammed vast swaths of the country last month, I heard a news report about increased avalanche activity in the western states. I don't recall the details of the news story. It was merely background noise as I went about my daily routine. But it got me thinking, remembering, to be more precise, remembering my old childhood fear of avalanches. Admittedly, it was an irrational fear. I grew up here in Massachusetts, a healthy distance from the modest peaks of the Berkshires and White Mountains, never mind the more avalanche-prone ranges of the American West. My family did not ski, and we rarely, nay, never, visited the mountains in wintertime. Yet there were nights when I would lie awake in my twin bed, fingers clenched for dear life around the neck of a favorite stuffed animal, tormenting myself with visions of our station wagon winding around some anonymous gray mountain. Suddenly, an enormous boulder of snow and gravel would come crashing from the mountainside, obliterating the windshield with a thunderous crack. That's as far as my young imagination would take me, till I replayed the whole thing the next night. I had other fears, some less far-fetched, though still unlikely, house fires and armed burglaries top among them. And after the deadly 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens when I was 6 years old, volcanoes became my fear of choice, despite the fact that Mount St. Helens is in Washington State, an entire continent away. I suspect my childhood fears were shaped by too many Wile E. Coyote cartoons and too much exposure to the nightly news. Though irrational, my fears were not unhealthy. Fear is a reasonable and necessary response to emerging consciousness in young children. As we grow into awareness of the world around us, we discover that it is a wild and unpredictable place, sometimes dangerously so. Part of our task is to figure out how to create order, how to find stability and seek safety in an uncertain world, to know when to risk danger and when to take shelter. Fear is a kind of compass, one of the tools we have to help us navigate the rocky path of this wild life. But in those years, my fear was an unreliable instrument, poorly calibrated. My childhood fear was disproportionately intense because my perspective on the world was so new and narrow. I lacked the life experience to appreciate the geography of physical distance. My intellect wasn't developed enough to comprehend the statistical unlikelihood of succumbing to a volcanic eruption. From the small window of my young consciousness, the world appeared more dangerous than it actually was. I needed adults with more life experience and greater intellectual capacity to help widen my perspective and thereby allay my fears. Generally speaking, we accept that children need the perspective of other people to help them find their way in the world. Drawing on Ramon Panikar's metaphor, children need to hear what well-intentioned adults in their lives see from those adult windows. Perhaps nearly all of us can agree on that. But can we agree that adults also need to hear the perspectives of other people, even the people who see things very differently, in order to find our way in this wild and uncertain world. Easier said than done. Our worship theme for the month of January is finding our center. Like much in spiritual life, the concept of finding our center is an intangible idea, so let me try to give it some substance. I think of centering, of finding our center as a practice of pausing on the journey of life to get our bearings. As we go about the routines of everyday living, often mechanically and without conscious intention, we sometimes lose sight of the values and understandings that guide and motivate us on our way. We forget to ask ourselves, why and to what purpose? What is most true and meaningful in this life? To center is to rest for a moment so that we can consult our spiritual compasses. Which way north? For me, I believe this is one of the essential reasons why people come to church, to practice pausing, to read the spiritual compass that helps guide us through the wilds. Come, my way, my truth, my life, such a way that gives us breath, such a truth as ends all strife. Even though we think of centering as an inward and solitary activity, my firm belief is that we can't do it on our own. We cannot rely solely on our own inner compasses. We need to sync our navigational tools with those of our companions on this journey of life. Why? Because no matter how much we've grown up, our own perspective is always limited by the window frame of our individual perception. As children, our window onto the world is necessarily small and narrow. As we grow up, the window expands, but it's still but one window. We always and only directly observe the world through the confines of our limited perception. Religious thinkers from our own and diverse traditions recognize this. In our opening words, Sophia Foz reminds us that each one of us is hidden in our own secret chamber. We're each listening and trying to speak, yet no one of us alone is fully understanding, fully understood. One of my own UU teachers, Mark Morrison Reed, contends that we gather in religious community to transcend the limitations of our individual point of view. The religious community is essential, he writes, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen. Together, our vision widens. Ramon Panicar grew up in Spain in an intercultural family, the son of a Spanish Catalan mother and an Indian father. Panicar spent considerable time in India and the United States. His cross-cultural adventures convinced him that we are most capable of navigating the mysteries and challenges of life when we broaden our perspective through intercultural and interreligious exchange, through the sharing of diverse perspectives. Of his own life, he wrote, "I left Europe for India as a Christian. I discovered I was a Hindu and returned as a Buddhist without ever having ceased to be a Christian." Panicar discovered that alone we are lost in the wild, and our compasses aren't helping us find our way out. Nobody alone can find anything, he said. No one person or cultural tradition has the monopoly on ultimate things or on truth. Our individual compasses are faulty, unreliable. What Panikkar discovered is that we can recalibrate our inner compasses by syncing them with those of others on the journey. How do we do this syncing? Through dialogue, by listening and by each trying to speak, in Sophia Fa's words, by trying to speak the truth of what we observe as completely and honestly as we are able, and by listening with genuine openness to what our neighbors describe about the reality outside their windows. Sometimes the dialogue feels enriching. The world outside our window seems more clear and vast and beautiful because of our neighbors' contributions. Other times, the dialogue is challenging. We like our view just as it is. We want to hold on to it. We don't want anyone to disrupt it or take it away from us. Dialogue is meant to be contentious. Dialogue encompasses different and sometimes contradictory points of view. It entails debates, disagreements, quarrels. But when we speak and when we listen with honesty and openness, with integrity and generosity of spirit, our inner compasses become more finely calibrated. I'm going to try to illustrate this with a perhaps too simplistic example. So my neighbor and I agree to describe the world as we see it from our distinct windows. I tell my neighbor that the sky is blue and clear, a golden light illuminates grassy hills, birds sing from leafy tree branches, flowers bloom in the meadows, orchards swell with ripe fruits and nuts. The world is a beautiful playground, an abundant feast ripe for the taking. No, no, my neighbor cries. The sky is gray and stormy, winds howl and topple trees. The river is frozen still. The landscape is blanketed in an endless sheet of white. The world is a dangerous and barren place. We could spend our time going back and forth, butting heads in an effort to win this argument. Or we could listen and learn and come to a more expansive understanding of reality and how best to face it. In doing so, I learn not to take fair weather for granted, to harvest life's gifts when they present, and also to brace for life's inevitable storms. My neighbor learns to keep an eye out for fair skies, to take shelter through life's storms, but not to get stuck in a prison of her own making, to brave the wilderness when the opportunity comes to harvest life's bounty. Switching gears a little here. My favorite television series of all time is the British show called The Midwife. The series follows a small community of Anglican nuns and young nurse midwives who live and work together in the hardscrabble East London neighborhood of Poplar during the 1950s and 60s. The title of this sermon, "We Need the Quarrel," is inspired by a favorite scene. During a break from her midwifery work, young Sister Winifred takes to caring for orphans at the Mother House and finds she has a special gift for nurturing a young boy with disabilities. Towards the end of her scheduled stay, Sister Winifred declares to the other nuns that she wants to leave midwifery and stay on indefinitely to care for the children. A more experienced nun admonishes Sister Winifred, reminding her that she must obediently go where she is called. A quarrel ensues, which another nun attempts to silence, until Sister Mildred, the soon-to-be new Mother Superior, interjects with this brief speech. "The quarrel defines us. It drives us forward, upwards. Pages. Sorry. We'll backpedal a little here. Well, I think a first. They're down there. Rewind. The quarrel defines us. It drives us forward, upwards, to our knees in prayer. You must embrace the quarrel. The quarrel will lead us to the answer. It is everything we are. Sister Mildred is speaking of quarrels, both internal and external. She makes the case that we find our way not by silencing, but rather by engaging opposing viewpoints. We find our way not by stubborn adherence to narrowly defined truth. Rather, we find our way by seeking truth in diverse perspectives. Judaism offers similar wisdom. There is a teaching in the rabbinic tradition called argument for the sake of heaven. An argument for the sake of heaven has the purpose of illuminating God's will, understood as truth and wisdom. Jewish teaching distinguishes arguments for the sake of heaven from arguments for the sake of victory. Jewish teaching denounces arguments entered solely for the purpose of winning, for securing authority, power, and status. And I planned this sermon long before the fiasco we witnessed in the House of Representatives last week. On the other hand, arguing to uncover greater and deeper truths is a necessary spiritual practice. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks writes this of arguments for the sake of heaven. The divine presence is to be found not in this voice as against that, but in the totality of the conversation. In an argument for the sake of truth, both sides win, for each is willing to listen to the viewpoints of its opponent and is thereby enlarged. An argument for the sake of heaven requires a shared commitment to speak and to listen with integrity and humility, a shared desire to reach a more expansive understanding of truth and purpose, shared willingness to concede victory for the sake of uncovering the best way forward. In our own Unitarian Universalist tradition and in this congregation, we also need to embrace the quarrel. We need to argue for the sake of heaven in order to find our way forward. We are living in particularly wild times. The views from our windows are often harrowing. We have a view on global pandemic, a European war, rising fascist movements, a warming planet. These realities shape our lives in ways large and small, political and personal, global and local. Together, we need to find our way forward in this complex world. Now, more than ever, we need diverse points of view to help us navigate our way. And in our tradition, we have a tool, a sacred tool that we use to help ensure that our arguments are not for the sake of victory, but rather for the sake of truth. We are a people of covenant. Each Sunday, we affirm our covenant in short form, and today we revisited the full covenant. It is a beautiful promise, shaped by leaders of this community in collaboration with wisdom and love. And by that covenant, we pledge to speak and to listen with integrity and humility, honesty and openness, compassion and respect. Let us revisit our covenant in all that we do, in all the challenges we face, in all the questions we ask, in all the answers we seek, in our relationships, our committee work, our ministries of care and compassion, our social justice efforts. This day and every day, let us pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. It's time to sing. We Would Be One. It's number 318 in your hymnal. Having found stillness, may we share peace. Having received connection, may we reach out to others. Having heard the call of our deepest self, may we live in greater alignment. Having returned to our center, may we expand the circle of love. May it be so. Let us sing Amen. Please join in the traditional words by which we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish
this flame, not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
musical quarrel to punctuate our time of worship. Our time of fellowship will begin. Please greet those among you.
Oh, I want to know what it's about. She didn't give me the context. What is it about? I wonder if it's about transgender. Oh.
How's the project going, David?
I got to trim the ladder, and I got to do it. They don't sleep till Friday. Sometime in the next.
Above or below the hinge?
Below the hinge, just below the last step, which is about a foot off. And then slide the things in both of them, and then maybe sliding, cutting the little legs,
Yeah.
the feet, cutting those.
Because otherwise it's going to be too long. You have to cut both. Got it. That makes sense.
It should cut the aluminum with the sawzall. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to cut it.
Is that what they suggested? You can talk to people who know?
Yeah.
Hi, Scott.
How long did your leftovers last?
What's that?
How long did your leftovers last?
The next day.
Oh, okay. You can't always get this monster steak. You can't get like maybe 3 meals out of it.
Yeah. And you got the note about the pan?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Do you guys use dishwasher packets?
You might still have some. Remember the dishwasher you gave us?
Huh?
You gave us the dishwasher, portable dishwasher many years ago.
Oh, God, yeah. Wow.
But it died.
Wow.
And we haven't really done much about replacing it
Okay.
or repairing it, so we still have packets left over.
I forgot.
So I don't have a dishwasher, but I do have dishwasher packets. So you say,
There's a little packets, right? And take the pot you want to clean, boil water in it. As close to the top as you can, because you'll see where it stops after the clean. Throw in the packet, put the cover on it, and turn off the heat. And let it stand for it'll do most of its work within an hour, 2 or 3 hours. And then rinse it out because it's that powder, it's not powder in the liquid, but it takes a good rinse or two, you know.
oh yeah, I'm always, Kathy's obsessive about that. I'm just so afraid. I don't want to take any of this stuff on my body, you know. It seems like they're making it stronger and stronger. That was a few packets on the environment. But, yeah.
Anyway, it'll, depending on the amount of stain, you'll be quite amazed by how much it restores paint in the ceramic.
I mean, you can't try to be careful, but when something burns in that particular pot, oh God, it's like scrub.
And this packet approach keeps you from scrubbing and damaging the paint.
Yeah.
So all my new, what do you call it? Cast iron, ceramic coated cast iron. Yeah. All my new ones are, what do you call it? Wash them, do all that after the meal. But there'll be that brown center stain. Boom.
And
Do
then, like,
this.
you can have things that are neutral, like,
Comes
you
up
could
with
say, like,
Good, thank you.
you know, any positive, you can't have anything that excludes somebody. And I said, well, what if I'm a cynic and I don't like everybody to be happy, be positive?